The White House warned this week that Syrian forces would, quote, pay a heavy price amid signs that the Assad government may be planning another chemical attack on its people. The Pentagon on Tuesday said it detected active preparations for chemical weapons use at Sherrod Airfield, the site of April's U.S. cruise missile strike. But UN Ambassador Nikki Haley told Congress Wednesday that the administration's warning may have averted the attack and saved innocent lives.
I think that by the president calling out Assad, I think by us continuing to remind Iran and Russia that while they choose to back Assad, that this was something we were not going to put up with. So I would like to think that the president saved many innocent men, women, and children.
Cliff May is the president of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. He joins me now from Washington. Welcome back, Cliff. Good to see you. So do you really think that the Assad regime would tempt fate again and try another chemical attack after what happened to them the first time?
I certainly think the warning has given them pause, and it may be that they're not going to do that again, that they recognize that if they cross that red line, there is a president now who will take action and make them feel some pain. So I certainly hope that's true for the sake of saving innocent lives. I also think it's important that the U.S. show again, as it has in this instance, that it is a power to be reckoned with. And the other ways that has been done in recent days, shooting down a Syrian plane and shooting down some Iranian-made drones. Those are important signals, among other things.
So what you're seeing here is the resurrection, the revival of the U.S. deterrent effect against rogue behavior. And that was, of course, missing for many, many years under the previous administration. Is that how you see it?
Absolutely, I do. If the deterrent is credible, it means you probably don't have to take action. Having used missiles once against Assad, it may be that we don't have to do it another time in this instance. Although there's plenty more we have to do, and that has to be done if this part of the world, if the fires in this part of the world are going to subside, much less be put out.
Well, I want to talk about that, but let's talk about, you mentioned the drone and the airplane shoot down. Now, when that happened, the U.S. was taking down aircraft that looked to be threatening American forces allied with America on the ground in fighting Islamic State. Russia and Iran reacted and said, don't do it again, we're going to challenge your aircraft. And yet we haven't seen that at all since then. Was that just a false threat?
Well, I think it was a bit of a game of chicken, and I think the Russians and others have to decide whether they think they can make the current U.S. administration back down. As you inferred or implied, I don't think they had any fear whatsoever of the Obama administration. They knew that Obama would always back down, would always stay away from action. Now they have to say, do we want to escalate? Now there is a possibility of escalation. They have to decide if they go out at high noon and draw their gun, are they going to be first and more accurate?
All right, so we know, we've heard this week, Mosul in Iraq is about to be liberated from Islamic State. Raqqa in Syria may not be far behind. Islamic State is going on the road to defeat, at least in its major enclaves. So what happens then? And is there a strategy that you see here that the United States has?
Yeah, this is a key question. Look, I think the defeat of the most ambitious and adventuristic jihadist expression, which is the reestablishment of a caliphate in the 21st century, if we defeat that, that's a good day. Let's celebrate that, but let's be careful, because we have a big day after problem. What do we do after? And we do not want to be the expeditionary force for Iran and for Russia and for Assad and others in Syria, and that could be the case. As far as a policy or a strategy,
yeah, that's what I want to hear. What's the U.S. strategy?
I do not think if we have a strategy, it has not been clearly articulated yet. And it's not going to be easy to come up with, because whatever strategy we have is going to have some serious downsides. There are no good strategies, there are bad strategies and worse, and it's going to take a bit of thought and consideration to figure out which is which. So I do think the day after problem is enormous. I think there are things that there are aspects of a strategy, such as safe zones, or I'd call them self-protection zones. Right. There are enclaves that have been in place really since 2012 that we can fortify, but we do not want to do it what essentially we did in Iraq, which is we take the country away from a terrible ruler such as Saddam Hussein and end up having that redound to the benefit of Iran, which is trying to establish a new empire, a Shia crescent in the Middle East.
Well, that's the point I wanted to ask you about, because I think I know, after ISIS is defeated, what Iran and Syria and Russia want, okay? Assad wants to run all of Syria again. Iran wants a Shiite arc of power from Tehran all the way to the Mediterranean, and the Russians want an ally that they can say, we help survive, and you give us a couple of military bases and a port. But it isn't clear that any of that is in the United States' interest. And how do we stop that from happening? Because those forces on the ground are going to keep pressing that, and it seems to me that we're going to have to respond with some kind of military force, either enforcing the enclaves for the Kurds or for the Sunnis, or maybe air power.
I think that's exactly right, and that's why it is so difficult, because we could win the battle today and lose the war tomorrow, and that's why we do need a policy and a strategy, and I think at least some of its components are going to be to set up those enclaves, to have the Sunnis not feel threatened by the Shia, by the Iranians, because if they do, they will look for any champion, including a champion like ISIS. We haven't mentioned Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda is very strong. Right. It hasn't gotten media attention, hasn't gotten military attention, but there are various Al-Qaeda affiliates that are also looking to take advantage of the situation. Assad, and he has supported, most of his effective fighting forces are Iranian proxies. He's trying to now move east towards the Iraqi border. We have all these problems. I have to think that Secretary Mattis and National Security Advisor McMaster need to be thinking about this very hard and saying, how do we at least frustrate the ambitions of Iran and of Russia and of Assad, and not allow this to become part of a new Persian empire.
All right, Cliff May, thanks for being here.